Hi, everyone. We are live. It's Living with Annietude and Conversations with Mike, our official launch. This is Mike Paterano.
Hey guys, Sid is asleep, so there will be no visitations from her tonight.
Please don't say that because you never know
I just jinxed it. Yeah, I know
if she
that's gonna
wakes.
be.
So,
Yeah.
and there's also two more, and there's mine who's not asleep. So,
Well, but my older two are under strict orders. If they leave the room other than going to the bathroom, then they lose tablets for a week.
then
So
that's never happening. They're
yeah,
frozen.
no, they'll find jugs to pee in the room before they do that.
Ew. So, girls don't do that, by the way.
Uh-huh.
So,
To not lose tablets, they would.
in case I'm looking, you already know this, but I'm going to be just open and transparent and honest as I always am. In case I'm looking a little bit like there's less color in my face than normal, it's because I cut my finger open on a Ninja blender blade and I was on the phone with Mike or about to call him or getting a call from him at almost the exact second or called him right when it happened. I don't know. Something happened where we got in touch right away and I had a minor breakdown. Here's my thumb. Okay. There's still like dried blood. It was like gushing and I sort of had a freak out. And let's just say that we've discovered, do you want to tell the story differently, Mike?
So we've come to the point where we realize that she has a tiny phobia of medical industry, which is pretty interesting for working in pharmaceuticals.
Yes. It's not so much a phobia of the industry. It's a phobia of like, I had 8 stitches in my thumb when I was little, and I am scared to death to have another Novocaine needle or any kind of needle anywhere put into my thumb specifically. And I started to cry and told Mike I didn't know what to do since he's on another planet called Saturn, also known as Arkansas. And I have Evie home with me, just the two of us tonight. Sammy's at his dad's. And I was like, what am I going to do? I mean, it's not like a regular day where I could just call my mom or, it's COVID, right? And also there was no shot. If my thumb was hanging off, I wasn't going to get a stitch. Like, it wasn't happening. Like, I would have convinced myself otherwise and bled out while I was sleeping before I was going to get stitches. So, but you were really calm. I appreciate you. You were like my work husband. I mean, you were like straight up like, it's okay. Breathe.
Yeah.
Breathe.
like take a breath. Like, it's okay.
I was out of my mind. I mean, it's very scary. Ninja blades are really sharp.
Well, I'm in Saturn, right? So, they still use CB radios. So I was looking to see if I can get a helicopter medic to come grab you. Like,
do you want to tell the funniest part of the whole story?
No.
Okay. So the funniest part of the whole story is that I wrapped my thumb. I could show you guys right now, but I took it off and put this on because he said that it was going to fall off because I was actually cutting off the circulation from the pressure. And there's a thing of medical tape that's this high from peeling it off. So let's just say that I'm a lot of things. I'm not a medic, especially a self-medic. Would you agree? You're being kind.
Yeah.
I can tell.
Yes. Yes, that is not one of your strongest points.
Okay. Thank you. So we've established that.
Yes.
I can deal with crises with my children and others. When it comes to myself, it's not my strong suit. So let's move on. Tonight on Living with Annietude Conversations with Mike, we are going to talk about expectations of others and what that means and putting expectations on other people and how that affects us. Now, so I did a little research while my thumb was bleeding out, and there's an expression that says, I want to see what you think of this. Okay. There's an expression that says expectations. I think it's actually from the program. I think expectations are premeditated resentments.
That makes sense.
What do you think about that statement?
I mean, because, okay, so from what I've learned from experience, because I do set expectations, unfortunately, and it's something that I'm working on. But I also go even deeper and expect people to act the way that I would act. in a lot of scenarios, and that's not fair either, right? It's not fair to me. It's not fair to them. It's setting things up for failure, right? Not always, but in a lot of cases. Um, the reality is, anytime you expect anything from anyone, even yourself, right? Like you're setting yourself up for a letdown, because once you have the expectation of anything, you're setting up for a letdown. Like, you can set yourself up for goals. You can set yourself up to want to do certain things. You can hope that other people respond in a certain way. But the minute it's an expectation in your mind, you're already setting yourself up that that's the only thing you'll accept.
So,
Right?
I think what you're saying is, let me just translate real quick. If I am hearing you correctly, what you're saying is, just because you expect it doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Well, it very rarely does. I mean, it very rarely does, right? Like,
well, it depends on who you're expecting it from, and it depends where your expectations. Like, some people have really low expectations. I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to understand where you're coming from. Like, I think that's the first thing we have to know as fact, is that when you set an expectation, that doesn't mean it's to happen. It's not sure.
No. Right, but the issue is, internally you're already setting that up as what you're setting that up as your baseline for what you'll accept and what you won't accept, right? And the minute you do that with anybody, right? Like, there's one person in my life, well, formerly in my life, that I had the lowest bar for any living human being, and those expectations still didn't get reached, and I was constantly being let down. And it's not a matter. It's just the act of setting it already makes you it makes you not flexible. It makes you not realistic, because you're setting a result that you're expecting, right? So
let me ask you this. So are you supposed to go through life with no expectations of others?
Well, I mean, if you listen to Gary Vee, yes, right? Because if you give with no expectations, if you work with people and don't have expectations, then you're actually gonna see the victories, right? If you have an expectation and they don't reach it, even if they've exceeded where they can go, you're never gonna see the victory.
Right, I understand that, but human nature plays a part here. I mean, who do you know that 100% of the time gives with zero expectation?
Well, I mean, it seems like Gary Vee does. I mean, he has cameras on him 24/7. Other than him, I don't think I've ever seen anybody that can present that, right?
It's almost impossible, right? So it's like, where do we find that wiggle room? Where do we find that line where we can expect some things? Or is the question, is the word expect? I think the word expect is the problem. I think, hoping, or.
Well, it goes beyond that, right? Because the minute you expect, you're setting something upon someone else in your own head.
You're creating a story.
Right. So, yeah, you got to live expectation free, because you have to accept whatever that person does, whether it's their best or not.
Okay, so I have another piece here. What if you set expectations, but you're clear and you communicate your expectations? Where do you think that difference falls?
But they're still your expectations upon someone else, so I don't think it matters.
So
but I don't think it matters, because, okay, so let's do this, right? Let's take a work scenario. I'm a team manager. I'm working with a team of whatever, let's say 10. I set expectations upon them. Right? The minute I do that, if they see one person not reach that expectation, but the other 9 do that first time, let's say 10 people, and I come down on them, I fire them, I do whatever, right? Whatever, give them additional training, whatever it is, the rest of the team is going to start reacting negatively, because it shows I'm never going to accept anything but that expectation. Now, to say that there's goals to reach, that there's certain milestones that need to be hit, that's a different thing. Right? Because there's a step layered process there. But when you expect anything of anyone else, you're not taking in anything but what you're expecting.
Well, okay. So we're talking about 2 different things. So we're talking about personal life and professional life. So in your professional life, I think setting expectations is really important in life. I don't think it's fair to say that I'm not going to live my life without setting any expectations. Here's what I'm going to set. I'm not gonna live my life setting no expectations, because I think that's unrealistic. And I think that it's unfair to myself and to others around me. So I am a big proponent of setting expectations realistically, okay? And then being clear, communicative, like being communicative about those expectations. So like, look, you know, if I'm meeting you for lunch at noon and the first time you're late, okay. The second time, you know, you don't, and you don't let me know, that's something that bothers me. Like I have my own boundaries, right? Like if you come at 12:30 the first time, it's like, okay. If you come at 12:45 the second time, it's like, you're not really respecting my time. So I would say to you, like, can you let me know next time? And also I would probably say, it bothers me, A, when you don't let me know, but B, if you're not going to be on time, let me know if 12:45 is a better start time for us. Like, I think it's communication rather than not setting the expectation that you'd be on time. Like it's a common courtesy to be on time.
But I don't know if that's an expectation, right? That's more about respect. That's more about just common sense, common knowledge. I don't know if that's really an expectation that you're setting upon someone else. Setting an expectation upon someone else is expecting a result from them, from an action.
Right. I'm expecting you to be on time.
Right, but to me, that's just a common courtesy. That's just
that's because that's something that you've decided is a common courtesy in your life. Other people
are
I'm
always early, right? Like I'm always early. Like that's
a value of yours, or something that's comfortable.
Especially if there's food involved. If there's food involved, then I'm early. So,
but Mike, what's something? Let's pick something that. Tell me an expectation that you put on someone that you wish that you didn't, because you got feelings about it when that expectation wasn't pulled through for.
I mean, do you want to talk about today, yesterday, the day before, like, I mean, like, you want to roll the dice here? Like, this could be Yahtzee, like, you know.
Comfortable with the one that you're most comfortable with.
I mean, there's many, right? Like, I don't care. I'll talk about anything, right? It just doesn't offend me. And it doesn't bother me, and I'm not ashamed, right? Like I am who I am. I make my mistakes, and I learn from them.
And I'm not trying to pick out a particular one.
No.
Be anything.
I'll give you a broad expectation, right? A very broad one. I expect honesty in return. I expect openness in return. I expect loyalty. I expect those things in return from people that I consider close to me.
Okay.
Right.
Mike, we need to pause for 1 second. Those are really high expectations of people. So you're putting your values on others. Not that I disagree, because I have similar expectations in the people that I allow in to be close to me.
Yes.
But this is where we go wrong, because when these are broken, we have it reflects negatively upon us. We feel we take it personally.
Yes, 100%, and it is a huge downfall. It's a huge downfall. It's a huge downfall of mine, because one, I'm putting what I want upon someone else. I'm not respecting who they are or what their circumstance or who they are as a person. Right? I'm you know, it's one thing to have standards. It's one thing to have layers of friends, closeness of friends, whatever you want to call it. I look at it as an onion, right? Like I have layers. The closer in you get, the more I expect from you, and that's just a reality. So when I look at these things, I let people in freely, but I also expect certain things in return, and I'm very open and upfront about it, right? Like I don't hide it. I'm very transparent.
I think, just knowing you, I think you might be open and upfront and transparent about who you are. Kenneth is writing in that he's the same way, and I'm with you.
How dare you, Kenneth? How dare you?
I think you are very open and honest about who you are and what you bring to the table. You always say, I'm open, I'm honest, I'll talk about anything, I'm not ashamed, I'm going to give you all of me, every ounce of me, and that's who you are. And you bring that, and that's an amazing way to be. However, are you open and transparent from Jump Street that that's what you expect of others? I don't know.
I think more than half of the time I am, right? I think more than half of the time, I'm being honest, right? So I feel like more than half of the time I am.
And what does that look like? What does that look like when you're open and honest about your expectations?
Oh, I'm very blunt. Like I don't, you know, I'm very blunt with people. I'm very, this is how I am. This is what I expect in return, and this is how close you're going to be in my life, right? Like I look at it from that point of view. And if you're not comfortable with how close that is, because you're not comfortable with those expectations, then you can choose to back off, walk away. I
Oh, I'm going to call you out. I
okay,
think that is a total facade, and I
okay,
think that I think that you get walked on because you're such a kind soul and such a good person, and you across the board give yourself. And you might have those expectations, but when they're not fulfilled, I don't think that you are as open about it as you are saying. Just from my experience with you, and this is not a
no,
knock. It's
no, no,
very
no,
hard.
no. And I'm not, right, because I'm anti-conflict, and I'm very shy about that, and it has to do with my worthlessness, and working on my self-worth, and working on my value, and working on all those things, right? So there's also an internal layer to me, right, that I'm working on these things now,
Mhm.
and as those things build up, it will get easier to walk into those situations and control the situation and have those conversations.
Sure.
I am anti-conflict, and I walk away from conflict before getting into one, because part of it is, when I'm done with somebody, I'm done with somebody. I just write it off because I'll
You
move
don't
on
want
to
to get
another.
there. You don't even want to
Right,
get there because you're
right.
going to be done.
Right, because I don't want it. I don't. There's other people that I can help. There's other people I can be around. There's other people I can have in my life that can bring value in return. Right, and when I start feeling disrespected, or I start feeling mistreated, that starts building up in me. Right, and I do start building those resentments. And maybe it's because of my expectations out of people in return. Maybe it's because of insecurities that I have personally. Maybe it's because I've been burned so many damn times that I have things that I won't stand for, right? And I see the
So,
writing on the wall.
so let's take it down one notch because we're talking about two really big extremes. We're already at a conflict where you're writing someone off.
Yes.
So let's take it down. Let's bring it
Okay.
back, reel it in a little bit, and
Okay.
let's get to maybe you've been burned so many times. And I'm speaking about you because we're so similar. And I'm speaking about me too when I say this. So this is healing for me and good practice for me
And
too. So I
and,
don't
and you don't have to divulge anything, so it's great for you. It works out perfect.
ouch.
So just
I will
saying.
divulge whatever you want.
I'm just saying.
No, I'm
No, you're fine. Go.
I am saying that my story is very similar in that I have been burned as well. And the reason I can speak to this is because I felt it many times. And I think where we are finding this gray area, maybe I'm wrong, but if we're finding this gray, like tell me if I'm right if this makes sense. We need to come back from I'm done with this person and to the beginning and say and come to this like gray middle where there's a conversation that maybe it was missed in the beginning of the relationship, or maybe it just needs to be had, that could be conflict, could be recognized as conflict, but doesn't have to be drama and severing the relationship. So where and you and I don't like that conflict. That's uncomfortable. Like for me,
Right.
it's uncomfortable too, even though I can call you out and tell you to do it. Like it's uncomfortable for me too. So
Right.
where's this? I'm with you. Like I'm so with you. I can't even tell you. Where is this middle ground where you can say to the person, you know what? I noticed a couple times that A, B, and C, and I don't know how you meant it, but it hurt my feelings. This is how I feel. How do you feel about that? And you guys can have a conversation and move on from it. And the conflict doesn't mean severing.
Okay. So I think every circumstance is different, right? And I feel like every situation is different. Um, I
Totally.
think I think that there's many different levels of how far it's gone, right? If it's gone too far. Just so you know, I can't see any comments, questions, anything that's coming in, so I have no idea what it is or isn't, other than
So we're supposed
Kenneth.
to call Kenneth Kenny.
Kenny?
So
Kenny?
I
Okay.
didn't know that. He's Kenny to me now.
Thank you,
And
Scrumptious.
he's scrumptious and edibly delicious, and he's
Yes.
loving this conversation, which is good
Okay.
because since I just got reprimanded by Mike live, I'm glad that you're here to be a witness to that. I don't know if anyone else is watching, but go
Doesn't
on.
matter. It wasn't reprimanded.
It was totally reprimanded.
It was busting chops.
I feel punished.
Oh, geez. We'll have to talk about this later, apparently.
Yeah,
Go to that
seriously.
gray area.
Another episode.
Apparently this will have to be addressed in that gray area conversation.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So every circumstance is different, right? And I don't know if there's a standard for this because you're dealing with different individuals, different severities, different levels. What I know I do, right? And this is me, right? And I have this voice in my head that says, because I have this crazy memory that I remember specifics from my whole life, even all the way down to childhood, that I start making scenarios in my head of this is the path this is going, and I start foreseeing where it's headed, and at that point, I will already just walk away because whether it's going to get there or not.
Would you say that that's telling stories?
I think it's psychotic. Yeah, sure. We can.
Is it telling stories?
It's creating narratives, right? Creating narratives, telling stories, whatever it is, right? I think everybody has some part of it, but mine is so detailed because I remember just so many details. So it becomes almost the reality, even though I'm not there yet. And in those cases, I'd rather walk away because
then have the conversation that I just said.
In a lot of cases, yeah, I really would. I'm more comfortable with that today. Today, I'm more comfortable with that. Today,
okay. Then having a conversation you're more comfortable with.
I'm not there yet. I'm just not. Okay. I mean, I hope to get there, right?
That's fair and honest.
But it's also, that's how I protect myself because I've been burned so many times. That's how I, defend from getting burnt again.
Kenny wants to know how it's so quiet and what's going on with your children. The Paterano household is too quiet.
Seriously, the zoo is quiet. Sid is sleeping, and Thomas and Michelle are in the room with tablets, and they're under orders that if they leave the room, then they're losing him for a week. So it's working.
No, I don't know how you played that card with this. I mean, like we're used to the zoo.
I know. It worked.
For like a 4-hour or something.
Well, I've used it on other things. They just ignore it. So
yes.
just because they did it tonight doesn't mean that I haven't told them this before.
Or they're doing it 22 minutes in. Let's take it down one notch. Yeah. So to your point, I hear what you're saying, and I appreciate your candor when you say I'm not comfortable in that place right now, and that you're aware of that is really good because it would be not so good if you were like, oh, I'll have the conversation when I know damn well that you don't want to. And you know that. So that's great that you're aware of that. I let things go too much. So I won't walk away. I give people the benefit of the doubt all the time.
Yes,
you know that. Right?
Yes, you do.
And is it a fault?
Okay, so just to give a little bit of insight, when I'm having these thoughts in my head, I have Annie on one shoulder, who's my little angel on one side because she's the benefit of the doubt person. And then I have me on the other because I'm just not, right?
Very
right.
Negative.
Right. I'm like writing the narrative. The story's already done. The book's already been closed. Everything's the world ended.
Dead to you.
Like totally. and that's how I live.
Whoa. Let's just tap the brakes.
And the unfortunate part is sometimes it works out to keep following the path that I saw. But, still, my whole life, I gave everybody every chance in the world, and I got burnt so horribly, right? I always saw the best in everyone. Always. And it's burned me so bad, horribly bad. So
yeah, that sucks.
I mean, at some point, I just stopped.
So
I just...
Wait. All right. Where's the middle ground, and why can't either of us find that? And B, I don't remember B, so all of the above. No. So, and my other question I'll think of in a minute because it was really important. But where is this middle ground? There has to be, are we choosing the wrong people to trust? If you're getting burned so much, and I've gotten burned a lot too, and I think taken advantage of is more where I stand because of that benefit of the doubt thing. I just get really raked over the coals sometimes with being taken advantage of.
Okay,
Are you choosing the wrong people?
Okay, so before I answer,
Okay.
we want to know how your 10th digit is. Is it bleeding? Is it still there? Can you feel it? Okay,
It's
we're
here.
good.
It's here and I can feel it. Whereas before, when it was wrapped like a golf ball or you called it a globe.
It looked like a snow globe. Yes.
On the phone, he was like, I told you to wrap it tightly like 2 or 3 times. Not
Right.
like it was
a whole roll of tape. Yes. It was.
Start answering. Hold on one second. I'm gonna get the tape.
It was hysterical. It literally was the size of her fist. I've never seen anything like it in my life.
I don't know if this really does it for you guys, but this is
yeah, that does it. That does it.
On camera, it looks even more ridiculous, but
yes.
It looked like I was holding a globe, and it also was numb, and it felt like the circulation was sort of being cut off, which I thought, I was under the impression you were supposed to do that so that
it turns purple and falls off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just a little insight. Annie has this medical thing, right, where she doesn't like medical. She can't deal with it personally.
Right.
She was worse over this minor cut on her finger than she was when she thought she had COVID, because she thought she was dying one morning. She swore she had COVID, that she was dead.
Like, I talked about it on the Living with Annietude
right.
podcast.
And she wasn't going to see her kids for the weekend, and nothing was going to work out. And meanwhile, everything was fine.
So occasionally, I get into an always never type thing. I get it. Okay, we all get it, and we don't have to make fun of me anymore about it.
No, it's pretty humorous, but it's very cute and endearing.
Totally.
Yeah, it's great. But it's good to see that you're actually human, right? Below all the positivity and the Annietude, so that's a win.
I'm totally human.
That's a good thing, because you're living with Annietude sometimes seems unrealistic. Just because you're so lovable. No, because you're so lovable, and it's hard to attain that Annietude that you carry with you. That showing the human side makes it that much more impactful.
Oh, I'm definitely human, and I freak out all the time, and my emotional dysregulation is ready and available for most of the time. I just have a good. Here's what I do. To show you my self-awareness, I definitely freak out like all the time, and then I calm myself down, and I have a good way of putting a positive Annietude on things, right? But when it comes to thoughts of needles and swabbing up my nose and here it is, ready? When it comes to me going to be in pain, right? That's where my head gets, my anxiety just gets like, oh, I have to get that needle. I have to get that swab. That makes me crazy. It's anxiety. I can't help it.
It is. No. And honestly, in some ways it is cute and endearing. It is.
Thanks. It's kind of annoying, but I'm going to work on it. Although it is really like a gut reaction. And as you can see now, I'm fine.
Yes.
But, it was, what did you do to your finger, girl? Kenny said.
Ninja blender.
Beginning of the show, I have a ninja blender, and I decided to reach in and turn the blade, and it went through my and it went through not through, but the tip of my finger.
So did you watch any horror movies as a kid? Like, didn't you know that shoving your hand in a blender is not a good idea?
Never a good idea.
Right.
And I really, really, I don't want to talk about how bad I wanted that shake I was making. I wanted that shake so bad. It was like you won't get the Pulp Fiction reference, so I'll leave it out, but it was a tasty beverage. And
apparently.
Yeah. So
it had a red tint.
Yeah, thank you for that. Okay.
No problem.
So moving on, even though we're making this whole show about me, even though I don't divulge anything about my personal life, right?
Right.
So so we're going back to expectations. So where's the middle ground? And I think most importantly, are we choosing, I hear footsteps, by the way.
Good luck.
Are we choosing?
It is your turn. I got to be honest. It is your turn.
Are we choosing the wrong people?
Okay. So middle ground in my mind is having those conversations, right? And being fully clear about just, just very upfront about it, right? And if something's bothering me, addressing it rather than letting it fester. But again, it goes back to self-worth. It goes back to, creating my own value, believing in myself, all those things as a human being, getting rid of all the shame, getting rid of, blaming myself for every time that things have gone wrong, or holding it against myself, really, right? Like, I mean, it's one thing to take ownership, it's another thing to beat myself into the ground.
Or walking away so
Right.
that you're saving yourself from what could possibly happen. I mean, you're pretty quick to, I know people like this. I have people like this in my life where you're deathly loyal, like loyal to death, like I am. But if you are hurt by somebody,
Oh, it's
your
over.
first
I'm done.
reaction is shut the door.
Yeah, it's not worth it.
And I'm trying to work with you, and through that work with myself to learn how to have those conversations. Can be kind. They don't, and conflict, like I've read so much. I took courses on conflict for my MBA. Like,
you have conflict, an MBA? Sorry.
This is what it looks like.
Yeah, okay. I believe that.
Conflict is okay. Conflict is not something that has to be negative. I think people misconstrue conflict as nasty and negative and severing and bad.
But okay, so all it is open communication, right? So if we change that in our head, that it's not a conflict, it's having an open dialogue and open communication to express both sides of a scenario, then it doesn't have the negative connotation that conflict has. Right. And that's really all you're doing, right? You're addressing the sides. And as long as the other side is willing to acknowledge it, address it, whatever it is, you're fine.
No. See, it's not about that. As long as you are willing, it's the same expectation that you're putting on the conflict conversation.
Really?
See? Right? Like, you see what I'm saying? As long as it's not as it would go smoothly as long as the other person acknowledges. The point is, you have the self-worth. We have the self-worth to say, this really hurt my feelings. This upset me. This blah, blah, blah me. I feel like this. And then let the other person talk. But you can't control how the other person responds and reacts.
So, okay. So if the other person ignores it and moves right on, so then
if the other person ignores your feelings, then this shouldn't probably be your friend, right?
Okay.
The other person completely ignores your feelings. But if you if you're sitting down and you're saying to this person, this happened, this is how I see it. How do you see it? How can that person ignore that?
I've seen many.
Just blatantly ignore it.
Or talk in circles to just not discuss the topic at hand.
Did you still make your point known?
Yeah.
Answer me yes or no about these couple of next questions. You did. Yes. And was your point made to that person? Did they hear you? I mean, I don't know if they heard you, but did they hear what you said?
I think so. I don't know if they stopped talking long enough to listen.
Right. Okay. But you had the worth to say something that bothered you or a way that you were feeling, right? They can do with it now what they choose.
But what I'm saying to you is having that conversation and it going up against a brick wall. At that point, do I just cut it off? Do I just end it right there on the spot?
Well, this is very situational. I mean, if that goes up against a brick wall, then you need to consider why that person isn't hearing you. The point is more so that you made your point known and that you had the worth to say how you felt. And the rest of the relationship is up to the way the two of you are. Maybe that person did hear you and doesn't know how to react to that particular situation. Maybe that person has other feelings, maybe a million things. We don't know. That's the key. We don't know. So to walk away, that's your choice. That's your prerogative. I don't know how pissed off you are. I don't know what hurt you. I don't know what bothered you. you know what I'm saying? Like, it all depends on the situation.
So let's take it back a step, right? So first A was, where do we find middle ground? Mm-hmm. And B was, do we find the wrong people?
Mm-hmm. Are we choosing the wrong people to trust?
Right. So I'm willing to bet 90% of the time that's yes. For me, personally.
9 out of 10.
Yes. I'm willing to bet yes.
Wow. That's high.
Well, but the reason I'm saying that is because I also give everybody a chance. right? I don't judge anybody for anything they did before they met me.
Right.
I
That's
just don't.
fair. I like that.
So I'm very.
So they have a clean slate.
They always have a clean slate walking into whatever the situation with me is.
But are
Because
you setting expectations so high that 9 out of 10 people are letting you down?
maybe yes and maybe no. I think that's again. I feel like it's a situational thing, right?
Yeah.
It
Agreed.
depends on the circumstances because I've had so many of those in personal life and so many of those in business where it's even in writing and it still happens that if the person didn't want to do it, then they shouldn't put it in writing, right? Like, I mean,
So then something else is, and I've had this conversation with you before. Something else is amiss here. Something else.
I,
There's another factor that we're missing.
maybe I am just too rigid in what I believe that I need to find my people instead of all people, right? Maybe I need to
That's really
close
fair.
maybe I need to close that funnel, right? Let's look at it from a funnel perspective. And rather than just saying, "Hey, anybody, let's see where this goes," and close it down to finding the right people to say, "Let's see where this goes."
Totally. You just nailed it. And here's the thing. The whole clean slate, open forum, balls to the wall, no holds barred when you meet Mike Panorano and Annie Leave, actually, when I think about it, like I am so not judgmental. It's like sad. Like sometimes I really need to say, so
If 25 people tell you that this has happened to me,
yeah,
then
no, it's not so much about gossip, but you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that we need to have a thicker filter. And that
okay.
has to do with self-worth, in my opinion.
And I agree with you, right? And that's something I'm working on. But then you're not giving people a chance for their redemption story either. And that's where I start getting a little, because I'm so empathic and I'm so empathetic, empathic, whatever it is.
No, you're right.
Because, I was right the first time. I'm so used to being.
Both are acceptable.
Okay, well, we'll use both because
My mom would say okay on both. She'd prefer empathic, but go ahead.
Okay. So because I'm so empathic, I I want to give people that chance to do better for themselves, and that's where I get the naivety, right? Is that correct, or did I say that wrong too? I'm just curious. Naivety, naivete, naivete.
There's an accent.
Hey,
My
okay,
mother
hey.
is actually peeing herself right now. Naivete,
Shanae. It's
an
like,
accent on the let's eat. Let's move on. We don't have
so
to
it's
have
like Shanae, like hey. Okay, so was that in Living Color? Is that what that was from? I don't remember anymore. But
yes.
okay, well that was before all the drinking
No,
and stuff and
Shanae
drugs.
was Martin Lawrence, wasn't it?
Oh, was it? Oh, yeah. I think you're right. I think that was the Martin
I think I
show.
am. And
Yeah, I think that was the one like downstairs or something. Yeah,
that
yeah,
one
yeah,
was in
yeah,
Living
yeah.
Color. In Living
Okay.
Color.
Yeah.
Oh, I pulled that out of my butt. All right, so go
I'm
ahead.
telling you, that was like Fox's break into the world.
Oh my God, Jim Carrey too, and
Oh yeah,
all
Fire
of
Marshal
them.
Bill. Oh God, Fire Marshal Bill was the best.
All right,
I,
so
so I don't even know where I was going anymore. I just
I
went
don't
off of that.
even.
We
You
said
were.
Shanae. We said something at the accent at the end. We said, "Damn."
Oh, Kenny said it's good to see Mike laugh tonight.
Yeah,
That's
I'm in a
really
better.
sweet.
That's
He's
what
such a
happens when
good
your kids. That's what happens when your 3 kids are quiet after 24/7 for
guy.
110 days.
He's such a good guy. That was really sweet, Kenny. I like
Kenny,
Kenny.
Do you babysit?
So I think we were talking about finding that
Oh,
middle
about being
ground
naive. About being naive,
and
right?
being naivete, and also
Naivete.
a filter, a thicker filter.
But at what point do I miss out on the ones that are making their comeback or the redemption, or do I just?
Okay, can I answer, because now it's the second time and I bit my tongue the first time, but can I just jump in and say you're not the only person that has to take the punches for people making a redemption, like having their redemption song? Like, why is it your job always?
Because I was always told I could take a hit.
Well, I think you can take plenty of hits. I think that you don't want to take as many hits.
So But just because I let them into the filter doesn't mean I have to do what I know he's do, right? So I don't have to just open them welcome arms and say, welcome to my world. And
yes, you don't have to be across the board with everybody. It's not,
yeah,
it can be like this, right? It can be like this. And some people get like, it doesn't have to be like,
sorry.
You're such a jerk.
Yes,
So
I am.
It can, the filter, never mind.
No, but okay, so
you see what I'm saying? Like you don't have to open the door wide open every single person. You can open the door for everyone, but it doesn't have to be wide open. There can be levels, tiers.
Like I don't have to sit there and say, hey, you're in my life. Here's my social, birthday, first address.
Here's my
first
soul.
car.
Here's my
right.
soul.
Yeah.
And also, what do you need? I'll do anything for you. Here's my blood type, right? And
I don't even know my blood type, but
your cousins. Like
I don't even know my blood type at all.
I don't know my blood type either. Although tonight,
oh, you might needed it. You should look into that. Apparently,
do you see what I'm saying? So I think what that comes down to of what we're trying to say is boundaries.
What are those? Wait, what?
Capital B.
That could be a 6-week conversation.
Boundaries.
I think I'm getting better with those. I'm little by little learning what they are.
You're talking about them, and you're making it part of your life.
And I'm addressing it, right? Like I'm actually actively addressing those issues, my self-worth and everything else. And I think as I continue to do the work and I continue to progress and I continue to grow and evolve from those things, which I got to say is painful as hell. So anybody who wants to do it, more power to you, and you should. But just get ready for the pain and make sure that you have somebody around you that you trust with anything in your life, because you need that one person that you can turn to, because without that, it is miserably difficult.
Well, but what's on the other side?
Right. And it's worth it. And I'm saying it's worth it. I mean, everything's pain, right? Like when I got sober 14 years ago, that was pain. Like, well, that was physical and mental and emotional, but like, I mean, anything worth it, any growth is pain, but pain is also growth. So now that goes to Dave Meltzer, right? Anytime you have pain in your life, you're experiencing some type of growth. When something goes wrong, you're obviously learning, and it's all about perspective.
Totally. And there's also a whole other topic of conversation, which will have to be for another night, which is why is discomfort so hard for us? Why can't we sit with discomfort and pain sometimes and just be okay with it and allow it to work through us and pass? Why do we have to,
shove our hand in a blender?
Yes. Why do we have to shove our hand in a blender?
Yeah, metaphorically, obviously.
Kenny said you have to be able, this is funny. You have to be able, although he's serious and I get what he's saying, you have to be able to read people better before trusting. See, I'm going to jump in right now and tell you that Mike is not a bad read on people. It's that he reads everyone equally. That's the key with Mike. He gives everyone, and this is the find for tonight, is that everybody starts on level 0 with you, with the door wide open. And his read is at 0. And I think he's been burned so many times that his read can't be all at 0. You don't get to just walk in, and it doesn't mean you have to pass judgment on people. It just means that there's a certain thing that people have to do to earn their way through certain boundaries. And some people never get past certain boundaries, and that's okay.
That I'm not good at. That's apparent, right? That's completely obvious to me.
Well, that's all worth.
Right. And that's all based on worth, right? Self-worth, self-confidence, self-esteem. Any of those self things I usually lack, but I'm working on it.
No, you are working so hard on them. So don't talk about it.
No. I'm just saying I usually did or used to, but it's actively working on it, right? So where's your blinking cup, by the way? Like I don't see your blinking cup anywhere. Did a light bulb go off in the house?
We work together way too much, Mike.
Seriously.
It's upstairs with Evie.
Oh,
it was my trade-off.
Yeah, there you go.
By the way, her footsteps went away. I don't know where she went, but she does have to go to bed soon.
I feel like, yes, I'll do as I'm progressing, I'm getting better at those things, and that's great. I'm still going through the growing pains of it, and I'm still processing it. I feel a lot more clear-headed today than I did 3 days ago, right? Like even a day ago. Yesterday was pretty much an emotional breakdown day for me. But those happen, right? When you're going through this process, it happens a lot.
They certainly do. I had one today. Before the blender incident. It was not my best day today. Not my best day.
but it happens, and we have to accept that also, and we have to be okay with that. And one thing I'm getting better at is the self judgment, right? Like I'm not beating the crap out of myself into the ground anymore. I'm not like just holding it against myself and really, just beating myself down for these mistakes. And that's okay too. I'm
Right.
getting
Because,
there.
yeah, totally. And I also think your perspective too is changing about yourself,
Yeah,
and that maybe they're not so much being looked at as mistakes as you're starting to turn a little bit of that lens that you put on other, like that you allow to see other people. Like you'll say to me or anyone, don't beat yourself up about that. Like this
right.
is it's just I think you're turning that lens toward yourself a tiny bit more, and that's what's adding to your self-worth. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. I literally look at myself and say, what would I tell Annie? Like, I mean, or what would I say to anybody, right? Like, I mean, it's what helps me sometimes. Sometimes you have to be that introspective, outward perspective person, right? Because
Totally.
you know that you're seeing it from your perspective at that moment, but you
But also
need.
self-acceptance, Mike, too, about like compassion. Like when I
Oh
blended
yeah,
my
so
finger
yeah,
tonight, what did I call you and say? I was screaming mad because I said, I can't fucking believe I just grabbed the blade like that. And you were like, beating yourself up is not helping you, right?
no,
But yet my first inclination is to beat the crap out of myself because I reached in but you would say the same thing about yourself. Like, I'm so stupid. Why did I do
right.
that? Why did I, and it's like, God, we're so hard on ourselves. We're so hard on ourselves.
Well, again, we set expectations on ourselves, and we expect more out of ourselves. So
Perfection.
so it
Yeah.
goes back out of that same concept, right? Like it's the same thing. We're sitting here with these self expectations that are just as dangerous as setting expectations on others. We have to
Oh,
just
I think even
accept.
more. I mean, if you had to
Well,
really,
yeah. I mean, honestly,
even
they are
more.
worse. Yeah, because then we set ourselves up for failures, right? And then we fall into the trend of everything feels like a failure when you're not even seeing the small victories anymore, or the
Yeah,
or the
that's
growth.
true. And the self-compassion part of just like has to come into play somewhere
It's
there.
so hard. It's so hard though.
It
Like
really
when
is.
you're
When
when
you're
you're
in
in
there.
that moment, like when you called and you're in this frantic yelling at yourself, I'm like, so how bad is it? Do you see bone? You're like, I don't care. And it's like, did you see bone? Did you go through the fingernail? And it was like, I want to make sure that you're not going to die of blood loss before you forgive yourself here.
Yeah,
So like,
yeah.
how bad is it? And then she finally, after she takes the globe off her finger, it's like this little tiny little cut at the
It was
that
not a little cut.
it was deep.
So
It was
rude to me.
deep. No, it was deep. It was
Fine,
deep, but it was
fine.
little. It wasn't like you chopped your friggin' finger off. It was
No,
little.
I didn't. I didn't, but I
But
was scared. It scared me.
I and that's okay. But you're self-aware of it also. So that's okay, right?
Totally, totally aware of
Like
my my spasms.
but it
But I don't want to beat
happens.
myself up about them. I want to have some understanding around my anxiety. Okay. So my
But
anxiety
see,
comes out in different ways, and I want to understand that and be compassionate about that.
but I also had that yesterday. So it's not like you just had it. I had that yesterday just because I just got overwhelmed because I was becoming emotionally attached to results that I was expecting from people.
Hmm.
And that was really actually what
That,
triggered this conversation. Actually,
that
that's what
is,
triggered this conversation. That's what
yeah,
triggered this conversation.
yeah.
Um, and
Yesterday's incidents, which I mean,
yeah,
we could have talked about this anytime because it happens all the time.
right.
But
But
when
it
something keeps
just,
happening, right? When something keeps happening, when you keep going, not you, one keeps going into business
right.
deals and you're losing money, where you keep having
Oh, you
friendships
can
that
keep saying me. You can keep saying me. We're good. We haven't left that yet. That's fine. Like
oh my
this.
God. This is going to be over before it started. I'm going to tell you that right now. This is
Wow.
like
Episode one.
you're the launch
That
out
and the
of here.
bloopers.
Done
That
with
and the
you.
bloop. That
Dead
and the
to me.
bloopers. That and the
Dead to me.
bloopers. It's over.
Um, no, when we continue to see the same things, right? Definition of insanity, but not only that, like there's what are we contributing to this mess? What are we
Yes.
contributing? And we have to take a look at our contribution, but with self-compassion. And that's really freaking hard to do.
That's very difficult, right? Like being self-aware enough to see that without beating yourself up over it, but
Right.
then also just being able to forgive yourself for what you're bringing to that table. And in this case, I'm just letting everybody in, right? I'm not. There's no pre-screening, right? I don't care if you have corona or not. You're coming in my house, so it's like, I mean, that's the easiest way to sum it up as of today. Well, okay, phone slipped, but I'm going to give somebody like motion sickness.
Yeah.
But that's the way, right? Like, I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm freely accepting everybody, no matter what the situation is, and I'm just giving them an open key to me, right? I
Yeah.
need
And
that's my core issue right now is my lack of filtration process, like you've said numerous times.
Yeah. But it's not, you have to remember where it stems from. Okay. So I believe that this stems from such a kind, caring human being behind that filter that is just saying, love me.
It is, right, and that goes back to other things that we've discussed before, and things that we've talked about, right? Like my lack of self-worth because of shame incidents and all these things from when I was a child, and
But at the
I
end of the
never.
day, I think everybody wants to be loved. Everybody wants to be loved. We did not, as people, did not have the best practices with boundaries. And we didn't practice them a lot in our lives. So learning them as adults is kind of difficult, and that's okay.
I am phenomenal with boundaries. I just don't have any. I just don't have any.
You don't have any boundaries.
Right.
You're really good at not having them.
But exactly. I mean, like, I found a way not to have a bad one. Just have none.
So to wrap it up toward the end of our session here.
A little less in your finger.
Yes. Wow. Wow. Tough
I don't.
crowd tonight.
It was a snow globe. It was a snow globe.
Tough
like
crowd
if
tonight.
it wasn't so fresh in my mind, like, I mean, literally, I just keep watching it in my head.
Oh my God. Somehow I got through it though. Somehow. I don't know how.
You did. You found a way not to chop off your other hand just to make up for the finger.
Right.
So
my Candyland Band-Aids are exceptional. Yeah. So what's your final sort of, if somebody's watching and they want to know what our message is about setting expectations, and I think what we talked about the most was not being let down by people so much because of our expectations. What would your message be?
Well, I mean, here's the thing, right? Like, we didn't actually really talk much about that. We talked more about our personal experience with it, right? So we shared what worked, what hasn't worked for us, what we're working on to improve that for us, because we don't have that answer. And that's for me, right? I just know that if I continue to do the work, I continue to push forward, I continue to work on my self-worth, and do the work and do the writing, and go through my past and resolve these former issues, that over time I think it will naturally start building themselves. I feel like I'm at the point where I'm self-aware enough, turning that corner, that it's starting to make more sense now, right? And I'm starting to see that I'm still not as right. I mean, I'm not as self-compassionate as I want to be, but I'm working on that also.
But you're doing work on it. I mean, you can see the changes in you. And I, just through you and talking about it, like I feel like I am working on it too. And I have to be really careful with being taken advantage of, and I have to get better at that and see it sooner, because I'm accepting everything from everyone because I want to be loved is not the best way to be either, because I end up getting hurt.
Well, I feel like everyone's got to work on that, right? Unless you're a sociopath, a narcissist, or a psychopath, I mean, you have to continue to work on it. It's a never-ending process. It's a permanent evolution until the day you're done, right? Whether that's
we are all works in progress, my dear.
Everyone. So I think there's no shame in admitting it, as long as you're willing to do the work to change it. And that's where the disconnect comes, right? Because the minute that somebody says, I want to change, that's not the issue. I mean, it's a big part of it, but Are they willing to do what it takes to change?
Well, sure, and awareness and acceptance of that in the beginning, and just like that I have an issue with it, and or that I am contributing to this. What is,
Right.
instead of blaming everyone, like I always get hurt, I always get screwed over, or I always, that's so the victim mentality of just and not taking responsibility, and that's never going to get you anywhere. It's just going to leave you in the same place.
And I've been the opposite extreme, where it's just always my fault, and it's all my fault, and everybody else is fine. It's just on me, right?
Totally, and that's so.
So I go to the other extreme, and that.
Well, of course, when you don't have worth, that's what you do, right?
Yes.
So you're working on the most important part, which is you.
Yes, and it's a process, and it's a grind, and it's some days it sucks, and some days it's magical, and it's like everything else, right? Like it's just a constant evolution. Yeah. And you just don't know which day it's going to be when you wake up. you just kind of roll with that, right? Like, I mean,
and if you wake up with a bad attitude, you can take Mike's advice, which today was, you have a bad attitude, listen to the Bad Annietude podcast. He goes, listen to yourself, because you need some goodness sprinkled into you.
No, that's what you heard. That wasn't my words. I said, go listen to yourself. I said, go listen to yourself, because you're not going to listen to anyone else. That's what I said. You're not going to, you're in a mindset where you're not going to hear anyone else.
I was making it a little kinder.
I know.
I was making it a little kinder. So there's
no, but we're all like that, because we're at times where we don't want to hear it from anyone else.
I was stuck. No,
it happens.
So there's a reason I have bracelets on my wrist. And I wear them. I don't take them off. So I'm going to end this episode by reading these bracelets. One says strong AF.
Well, right? Show them at the same time.
Okay. So strong as fuck. This one says all I need is within me. This one says, I want to read it so I get it right. I can't with my gimpy thumb. She believed she could, so she did. And all of them have meaning. They have my kids' names. And I wear these close to me, so they're near my pulse. And I think that that's the general message that we have to send tonight, if we're lifting someone else up and if we're lifting each other up by doing this, which is we are strong as fuck. All we need is within us. We need to believe that we can, so we will. And our children. I mean, is there anything else that's more important? Love?
No. I mean, the only other thing that I would add is, right, you have to find that person in your life that you can trust with anything. You need that person by your side. You need to find that person that you can open up to in a judgment-free zone that will allow you to go through the growth process. And odds are they'll be going through it also, right? You need that person, because sometimes doing it alone isn't impossible, but it is hard. It is really hard. And
it's definitely not impossible. It can be done, but finding someone is important too.
Yes, and
knowing that you can do it alone is definitely key.
Yeah, I mean, you need the relatability, though. You need a sounding board.
That connection, that makes sense.
That you need that sounding board. I mean, it could even be a therapist. Honestly, it could be anything like that. You just need somebody that will listen to you and not judge you. Yeah. Because while going through this process, it is enormous growth and enormous upsets, enormous downfalls, enormous just swings. It really is swings. And it is the most magical process ever, because as you're letting these things go and you're evolving past them, you have the immediate freeing feeling, but then you have the emotional tidal wave. But then,
but it's true that like letting the weight go, just like letting it be free, and you feel like you've lost that anchor.
Yes.
When you've let it go. So we have to wrap up. It's 10:59, but thank you, Mike Paterano, for your conversation tonight. I appreciate you and can't wait to do it next week.
Sounds good.
Okay. Good night.
All right. Good night, everybody.